intend to call the June 21st, 2022 Planning Board meeting to order. It's 7:03 p.m. And on our agenda tonight is the Senior Housing Special Permit application by Tobacco Hill Capital Partners, LLC. We also have other board business to discuss, including other potential rezoning and bylaw amendments, as well as some board business. So I think we should go ahead and get started. I would like to keep this meeting under 3 hours if possible. I know we have a lot of ground to cover, but the board does have some other items on its agenda. So I would like to proceed expeditiously if we can. So the purpose of this meeting is really to try and come to closure on the submission of information that will enable this board to make a determination as to this issuance of a special permit. So Ms. Mann, I know you have a PowerPoint presentation this evening, and there are several items that I know you intend to cover. I think I would like to consult with both you and Deborah Eliason as to how you would like to proceed. Would you like to cover one topic and then have the input from Save Tobacco Trails and Watershed and the public, or would you rather proceed to go through the whole presentation and then for other participants to make their statements to the board? I personally think it's more efficacious to proceed by topic, but I'm going to let you speak for your respective clients. So,
excuse me, Marnie, it's Robin Stein from KP
yes.
Law. Sorry, I apologize if I missed this. I had to step away for a second. Did you already identify all the board members on the call?
I did not, and I omitted a serious thing that we need to do, and that is roll call. So
thank you.
Thank you for reminding me.
Before we start on 133 Essex Street, I just wanted to check that.
That was a very good call. So when I call your name, please indicate you're present. I realize everyone's present except Richard, but we have to go through this process because we are recording and we don't have audience present. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you're here. Rick Mitchell.
Here.
Jonathan Poor.
Here.
Emil Dahlquist.
Here.
Beth Herr.
Present.
Bill Wheaton.
Here.
Pat Norton.
Here.
Corey Beaulieu.
Here.
And Marnie Crouch present. So with that brief interruption, for which I apologize, how would you wish to proceed?
So first, we do like to have a full board in Richard Boroff's absence. Concerns me if I don't know if we need to delay or not, but this is administrative and I'll answer. I don't mean delay as in, I'm certain he's showing up. I think Mr. Ruffett said that he had talked to him today. But relative to the presentation, I think that it's probably going to be best. I agree that normally it's better if you do it topic by topic, but I think that it is far better in the current circumstances to just allow us to present. And I think it will go much faster because I don't know what the opposition's, comments are going to be per section, but a lot of times they have their delivery of their own information and it just causes things to go off topic. So my preference is to just go through the PowerPoint and then allow their comments and their presentation in their format.
How do you feel about that, Ms. Eliason?
Madam Chair, I have to agree with Attorney Mann. I don't think that our presentation necessarily follows her format. But I would want one procedural question to be discussed before. We received a lot of material today, just today. A very important one is the Oxbow Associate report. And we didn't even receive the entire report. There was certain evidence and documents, but it's in Ms. Mann's PowerPoint. I would suggest that what has been done in the past when Save Tobacco was in that similar situation, those materials were not discussed until a following hearing. And I understand that this board does want to close things up, but we have not had an opportunity to adequately review that information. And I believe it's critical to this board's decision. So I would ask that it not be part of Ms. Mann's presentation and that we have an opportunity to discuss it at a later time. Thank you.
We have no problem with them reviewing, but this was all stimulated by the fact that they delivered a statement to the board by an ex-Conservation Commission member, literally a minute before the close of the hearing submittal timeline. If they have evidence to support that affidavit, it is identical to what we have provided, or I should say it's on the same topic. We're simply telling you what we did for purposes of confirming our land classifications, and by no means will I not discuss that tonight. If they have evidence, it should be here already because they're
Excuse
the
me,
ones who
it's,
did that
it's my,
affidavit.
excuse me, I don't believe Mr. Tar was representing in any fashion Save Tobacco Trails and Watershed. Is that correct?
He's not,
I have no idea.
we're not representing him. No, he is.
right, can I
He would be part of our
just-
presentation.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? Because, you know, I know we are kind of having a procedural, not substantive conversation while we await the last board member, but I do think Attorney Mann has a valid point that she wants to proceed with a full board. So before we get really down the road on anything, is it possible, I don't know, Patrick or someone to confirm if we're going to have a full board this evening?
I have been calling Richard's home continuously for the last 45 minutes, and I've been unable to reach him.
I know he is aware of the meeting tonight because I was exchanging emails with him. So
Well,
You have other business. Would it be appropriate, Ms. Crouch, to address those issues now and wait for him to join? Traditionally, he shows up a little late.
I actually think that would be difficult. I mean, the
Okay.
conversations that the board wishes to have really shouldn't be circumscribed by Mr. Borow's sudden appearance. I would imagine that he must have some type of an emergency that would keep him from attending. I mean, it's at the expense of sounding rather harsh. It's his responsibility to be here. He was given notice of this hearing, and if he has an emergency, that's certainly an excuse. But as I said, we have a busy agenda.
And I agree. It's just that, it's the applicant's preference to always have a full board. That's why I'm trying to figure out, is there a critical issue and he's not going to be able to attend, or what the circumstances are? Because typically, I realize that it burdens the board when someone's late. I understand. Just trying to kind of get a grip on what's going on, because you have talked to him today. Patrick had indicated that he had spoken to him, so it would be assumed that he is going to show. I don't know.
Question to Marnie and Patrick. Has Richard already missed one meeting?
Yes,
So,
that's
so,
why.
so then he's already exercised his right.
And that's
Say
my
again?
problem. He was the one, there's a couple of board members who've missed one. So if they miss another, I try not to. That's why I always ask. I think somebody was going to be missing a meeting, and I'm always like, did you ever miss one? Because I would prefer the hearing, obviously, when it comes time to make a decision, that it's a full board.
I understand that. So Patrick, you've used his cell number. Do you have a home number for him or any other numbers?
I've been calling his home telephone number. I do not have a cell number for him.
Do you want to try emailing him?
Sure.
We can't come to the phone right
Well, it's almost 7:15. I really sympathize with your position, Miss Mann, but I'm not sure that we can resolve this issue if we can't reach him. It just seems to be an
The only thing I
intractable
can say is,
situation.
I agree. I mean, we would seek a continuance, because if any other board member were to miss one other meeting, we would actually not be able to continue. So it's my duty to not allow it to
Let
go.
me just question, Corey, did you miss one meeting?
Yes.
Yes. And
I
Pat,
missed
have
one,
you
yeah.
missed? Pardon me?
I have missed one, yeah, but I filed the Mullen.
Yes.
I've
So you
also missed
can't miss
one.
another one. And Pat, did you miss any meetings?
I did miss one. Yeah, that's correct. Early on.
Yeah, I
Mr.
missed-
Wheaton, I think,
I
did
missed
as
one as well. Yeah.
Emil too. That's what I mean, Ms.
Right.
Crouch. Under normal circumstances, it was just one board member who had missed one and it was going to be forced off. It would be one thing, but there are enough that it gives pause, and I wouldn't be doing my job. That's why I say I understand you don't want to start something else, but perhaps starting one of your other matters and then, we'll just wait until you finish it. Or, I mean, I can conference with Mr. Smith offline to have a discussion, but my recommendation to him would be to continue.
You can imagine that this does pose some challenges for
Oh,
the schedule. You
Oh,
have
it
your
poses-
experts here. We have peer reviewers here. We have two meetings scheduled in July, and then I think our typical pattern is to have one meeting in August because of vacation schedules. So this will kick back the deliberations on this special permit probably into September if we continue this. So that's the difficulty.
Trust me, it's more horrific for us than for anyone, because our costs are exponential in comparison to probably anyone else. And we pay for it all, and I get it. Again, I can take, if the board would allow me the indulgence, I'll just pause my video, pause my mute, and talk to Mr. Smith. But again, that would be my recommendation regardless of the timing, because I can't risk a board member being absent. I mean, it would be.
I understand your statements and I appreciate them. So what we'll do is we will take up some board business at right now. And
Okay.
then once we've finished with that, and I don't anticipate that it will take too long, we'll revisit this and see how to proceed. And we will discuss then the schedule for the July 12th meeting.
I apologize to everyone, but thank you. I
No.
appreciate it.
Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone is as concerned as you are to some extent. So with that said, let's proceed to discuss the formation of the subcommittee to explore a form-based code at the seminary, at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. Did everyone receive the brief statement as to the goals of the members of the subcommittee and their tasks? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So anyhow, following our last meeting at which we talked about form-based codes, the joint meeting, it occurred to me following a phone call with Rick that the planning board might be in a good position to do some exploratory work here. So I thought Rick, because he's knowledgeable, he knows all the people in town. He's been a member of the planning board and actively involved in town government for years. That's right, Rick, right, for years. And Emil, because he's our expert on form-based codes, that they together could approach different town leaders and also decision makers at the seminary to explore whether the form-based code approach would be one that would enable both the seminary and the town and eventually with the input of the public to decide what the highest and best uses for that 100+ acre site would be. It appears that the seminary is somewhat up in the air as to what they would like to do with the property. And similarly, the town has ideas as to what it would like, how it would like to see the site developed, but no clear path forward with that goal. So that was the concept. And I discovered, and I brought it to Emil's attention, that there was a document produced in 2005 that identified heritage landscapes in Essex County, as well, obviously, in Hamilton. And one of the heritage landscapes that was identified was the seminary campus. And there are historic buildings on that site, as well as architecturally significant buildings. And obviously, the property has an interesting history. I think it was a Catholic retreat or seminary at one point, or some type of an institution. And then there was a wealthy Hamilton family that occupied a house on the site. And then, of course, Billy Graham was instrumental in getting this present seminary off the ground. So with all that said, it occurred to me that it may be possible to explore funding the form-based plan consultants with a potential grant from the CPC. So the subcommittee has a charge, and I anticipate that they will report periodically both to me and to Patrick, and also the rest of the board. So I'd like to hear any discussion about that, whether the members of the planning board think that's an appropriate way to proceed. And if they do, I would entertain a motion to appoint Emil Dahlquist and Rick Mitchell to a subcommittee. And as I said, I would be involved in any kind of questions that arose or whatnot, as would Patrick, if necessary. So I'd like to hear from all of you, and also Emil and Rick, if you have any, qualifications to what I said or any input. Also, I would like to hear from you as well.
Arnie, sorry to interrupt, keep interrupting. Can I ask one quick question? Because I'm a little new to the process. Would the subcommittee be just Emil and Rick?
Yes, and if they had to speak with me, that would be fine, but we don't constitute a quorum, so I think it would be.
We might want to maybe think about, or just get a little more information on this, because ordinarily under the open meeting law, if you have an official subcommittee, that committee in and of itself is subject to the open meeting law. So a subcommittee of two could be problematic. It might just be something we want to give some more thought to before you formally act on
So
this.
in other words, they couldn't even speak with any town officials about this?
Not
Really exploratory.
So could we make it a task force?
well, I mean,
That's what the Gordon Theological Seminary was, and we were not supposedly subject to a public open meeting law requirement.
I think if you just have two people on the committee that are informally reviewing something, you're probably fine. But if you're talking about appointing a subcommittee, then the open meeting law will apply to that. So I just wanted to note it.
Well, there's going to be no action taken. It's really to provide information to town officials about this form-based plan. Unfortunately, you weren't able to attend the last meeting at which we discussed it, but it's really to, nothing can happen without the actual expenditure of money and buy-in from both the town and the seminary if they wanted to proceed. And the result of this form-based approach is a development of something in the nature of an overlay district or a different bylaw. But at that point, the planning board would be well clear of any active involvement. It was more of an educational opportunity for the seminary and the town to come together. Because right now, it doesn't seem that any town body is taking a lead to kind of bring different parties together in a constructive way. So we could denominate it a task force if that would take the curse off of it.
I don't,
But
I mean, I don't know that it matters what you call it. If it really is in true nature a committee, then it's going to hit the open meeting law. But it sounds to me what you're saying is this isn't really a committee as much as you're just asking two members of the planning board, which are not a quorum of the planning board, to work together to do some initial outreach on an issue.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's it.
So, I mean, if it's not truly a committee, I mean, I saw a subcommittee, it raised a red flag to me, but it doesn't sound like you're really appointing a committee as much as the board's just asking Rich and Emil to work together on an issue.
Right. We're asking them to work together on an issue, and they would not be coming before the planning board with any type of motion or anything like that. I mean,
It's simply a recommending group of two people of the board, right?
yeah.
I just wanted to clear the issue with you folks, that's all.
Sure.
So you don't actually think that we would need to have a motion to authorize Emil and Rick to go forward?
I mean, I think that you could have a motion that authorizes them to. I don't know that you need a motion, honestly. I mean, they're not doing anything formal.
Right. I mean, they can't. I mean, it's really the only people who can actually do something formally would be the town manager and the decision makers at Gordon Conwell. They would have
Yeah,
to
anything
say that they
formal,
would like to proceed.
anything formal the planning board did, the whole board would need to vote on. So I don't know that you need a motion if you're just basically as a board saying we're going to have two members that are going to do some informational work.
That's about it, wouldn't you say, Rick and Emil?
Yeah, I would say that, and we're actually, from my perspective, we need to do some serious groundwork on, what is a form-based code? Does it have standing in Massachusetts state law? If so, what is that? And what's the process if all parties elect to go that route? What is the actual process and how do you implement it and who pays the costs? Because we need to have that lined up before we actually go out and start talking to town officials. So they have that they know and we know and the board knows what it is that we're really talking about.
I think that there's a lot of flexibility in this. So, that's really, one of the benefits of this approach is that the players, who have a stake with respect to the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary property are the ones that will actually ultimately determine what the outcome is. I mean, we can't determine the outcome in advance. Wouldn't that be correct, Emil? It's really the form-based approach is a way of getting people to decide what it is that they want to do, but they have to understand what the benefits of that process are.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. Form-based is an option, and it happens to be a very good option there, but it could be another one as well. Our task is not to design anything there, of course, but just to find out how amenable Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary is to perhaps a new idea that is accepted in Massachusetts. They've written a lot of documents. It is acceptable as a form, but also whether a hybrid system might be a better way to go or whatever. So it's just a conversation we want to have to begin an open dialogue with Gordon Conwell, given the urgency or the immediacy apparently of the disposition of their site and potential selling of their site, whether it's selling the whole parcel or partly or whatever. I think the two of us, I think, can do the research, and I agree with Rick on this. We do have a lot of legwork to do, and we want to talk together once this meeting is over. But we do really want to get a process in place so we can have this open dialogue to find out where they stand on this particular, whatever they're willing to reveal to us, because it's a potential zone change on that particular property, so it has long-term implications.
Just by way of background, Robin, I mean, the a local attorney for the seminary and a retired vice president of the seminary appeared before the planning board, and they were essentially requesting amendments to the commercial overlay district bylaw. And
I was at
so,
that meeting.
yes, so you're aware that we were all a little taken aback because we were unaware that of the approach that they were taking, but it was clear at that juncture that there was a lot of uncertainty as to what they wanted to do. But any type of overlay district that they would request the planning board to consider would require some significant amendment with public hearings, and it would have to go on the warrant at the earliest of the Springtown meeting. So this approach, this form-based approach is much different. And it would lead to a different result, but the time and effort is put into ascertaining what people want, and the public included, so that once some zoning change takes effect, any permitting under the form-based approach is somewhat simplified, as opposed to so many of the bylaws that we have now, which require a special permit. And of course, there's, as I'm sure the applicant here, Tobacco Hill Capital Partners will testify, there's no certainty as to the amount of time or the outcome for special permits. I mean, so the form-based approach is a way of flipping that on its head so that some of the issues are resolved up front. So the idea was to have Rick and Emil start a discussion and see if we could, move the needle, because there was a task force. There's been a task force with respect to Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary for probably 4 or 5 years, Patrick?
Yes.
And
And
the
I guess,
seminary is not much further along.
and I don't want to belabor it. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that if the planning board appoints a subcommittee to advise or make recommendations to the planning board, that would be subject to the open meeting law. And you're right.
Of course, yeah.
Nope. Just wanted to make sure. I mentioned
It's
it.
easy enough for me to craft a posting if 2 or more members of the group get together with the express purpose of generating firm recommendations for the board.
Yeah, and we can always continue the discussion offline. Maybe I'll get a better sense of the goals. I just wanted to mention it because I saw the subcommittee
Sure.
on the agenda.
What would we do without you, Robin?
Let me, as the board is aware, at your last meeting that I missed, I believe the town manager was in attendance, and he did take your comments to heart regarding the interest in form-based zoning. He followed up on that and had a Zoom meeting with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council staff, their chief planner, Mark Rassicott, and an individual whose name escapes me, who's an expert on form-based zoning. So we had a conversation. They're in the process of preparing a proposal to the town. They've sort of gotten an understanding of, what the public education process would need to be, the length of time, the level of public engagement, focusing on the Gordon Conwell property, graphics, and all the other elements that need to be part of a focused planning study. They've generated a conceptual number of 75K so far. But, again, the town manager was following up on the interest from the board and had some conversation with select persons, and he advanced the notion. So as this advances, I'll be happy to advise the board and keep you informed.
Well, that's great. So Rick and Emil, you can, you know, if warranted, interject yourself in that discussion and be facilitators to that process, if that is something that the town manager would like. And if at the end of this process, there are recommendations for the planning board, then we can schedule a meeting, and we, of course, it will be a public meeting, and we can get some ideas from the public, whether they think this is a good plan. But do other members of the planning board think that this is a worthwhile endeavor?
I strongly support this, and I would say that as the process unfolds, I would encourage Emil and Rick and Robin and you, Marnie, to if the process needs to adjust itself to become an open meeting, controlled subcommittee, then that's what we should do. So I think let the process tell us what form it should take. But for the moment, if Robin says, just as a sort of a little bit of a fact-finding effort, works as a non-subcommittee, that's great. I support this.
Well, the other thing too is, it's to everyone's benefit to make this public. I mean, we want to educate the public too about this. So,
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, and so if this eventually has legs, there's certainly no intent on my part to hide this from the public. In fact, I think the public would be intrigued by it because their participation in the process is critical to its success. Would you agree with that, Emil?
Oh, absolutely. It's the foundation really of this whole process to make it work, to make it much more predictable and give the benefit really, or the benefit of to the developer to make the approval process a lot quicker. So it works on both ends. You do have to put the work in up front as opposed to the end, but that's all well worth it in my experience.
That's why I would encourage the form of the committee, whatever it is called, and whether it's subject to open meeting law or not, follow the natural rhythm of the process and the timing of when it should be, open and transparent to the public. Let that unfold organically, not try to rigidly follow some kind of a minimal form for it.
Clarification question to Patrick. Is MAPC going to be proposing to be the agent to coordinate a public process to develop a form-based code?
That would be a portion of the scope that they would be preparing for us, yes.
And are there other elements to it?
They're preparing a framework that they'll review with us. Once they have it put together, I can share that with yourself, Marty, and Emil, other board members. If they're interested, we can get that refined and put together in a way that fits what people's needs believe to be.
Yeah, that would be good. Just so we know what the technical assistance is that they're proposing to provide, and there may be elements. I know I have concerns on certain elements that we haven't discussed about the process of actually implementing one when and if it's adopted. So
Right.
That would be that would be helpful.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I prepared a white paper that I've shared with Marnie and Emil regarding form-based zoning that, I'll probably refine some and send to the full board. I do have a lot of concerns. I think there are a lot of areas that the board needs to think about and consider before we really jump into it in a contractual basis. There are a lot of things to consider.
Oh, absolutely. There really are a lot of things to consider. And before the first dollar is spent, you'd want to pretty much make sure that success was going to happen down the road, because if not, you're throwing money away. And,
well, this is just the beginning. I mean, there's a long way to go in this whole process, and everybody has to be comfortable with the situation. The thing is, I think as the information unfolds, I think you're going to be very comfortable with it, and we can tweak it. I think what the state might do is give sort of a template form, how it can be instituted. But I think they're probably going to leave it up to the local community to really fine tune it in a way that I think that will suit the community.
Emil and Rich, Rick, I'd reached out to Patrick earlier asking for reference to a great estate bylaw, and he referenced the estate overlay district section, and I'm familiar with operating and know the benefits of and also challenges in a great estate bylaw application, but that might also be a consideration for that site, possibly.
Absolutely, and that's
Yeah, we've
something
talked about that.
that
Yeah.
we've talked about that. I think the estate overlay district, the way it's presently constructed is well, it's never been used. And I think in part because it is a bit cumbersome. And,
I can attest
to
that.
me, it would have more efficacy if it could be streamlined, but then also tweaked in a way that maybe avoid the pitfalls of the controversy that's enveloping Waldingfeld. But Waldingfeld and Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary are obviously two different properties. And I think a lot of the great estates, and I'm surprised about Waldingfeld, here, I think a lot of the land is conservation land and is in some sense protected. And so there's not the potential for a sale of a large acreage, probably historic home, the way that happened with Waldingfeld, which surprised me. I mean, but that's an amazing site. Is it on the National Register of Historic Places? Do you know, Bill, whether it's on the National Register, Waldingfeld? I mean, the Olmsted Gardens in and of themselves.
No, it's not.
It's not.
I don't believe so. Well, that's not the same as the historic district.
I didn't mean to derail your discussion there from the agenda item on the
Well, I'm
form.
sure the longer we're derailed, the happier Jill will be if
So
Richard Boroff shows up. So, but anyhow, that I'm surprised it wasn't on the National Register of Historic Places. That
I guess me saying it was basically volunteering to throw my hat in to just describe some challenges and benefits that I've experienced with applying that to a development, the estate overlay district.
do you know whether our estate overlay
So,
district is similar
Marnie,
to ones?
I think we're starting to get a little off the agenda, so I just, I want to remind.
Well,
us.
we're actually on the agenda, Robin, are amendments to our existing bylaws. So this is
There are,
pertinent
but
to that.
you did list some specific ones there, so I just didn't want to go stray too far from those, that's all.
We said potentially others. We
Oh.
covered ourselves in glory.
Okay.
So this is, I just wondered if the ones you're referring to are in Ipswich and whether they're similar to our estate overlay district. Do you know?
Yeah.
They are.
Yep. Similar. But
Very,
different.
very similar because it was patterned after the Great Estates bylaw in Ipswich.
Oh, ours was, okay. Well, anyhow, why don't we then get back to some of the other items that we've listed? I don't know if anyone has any further thoughts on whether there are any amendments that we could, and it would be very difficult if our schedule gets pushed back, any real short and sweet amendments that we could make that would get on the warrant for the fall town meeting. I don't know if anyone has thought.
I actually sent Patrick a draft of a small change to the beginning section of the stormwater bylaw, in which the section where we lay out for small projects, that is projects of 2 acres or less, how much land has to be cleared in order to require them to submit to the bylaw. And my proposal had for very gentle slopes, less than 4:1, they could clear everything. For steeper slopes, 3:1, they could clear. If they cleared more than 1/4 of an acre, then they would have to come in. And for 2:1, or I can't remember what the numbers were. It was more like they couldn't clear more than 1/2 an acre, but what they would have to come in. So I sent those to Patrick, suggesting that that's just something to tighten up the law so that it's more applicable in steep slope situations, and that would be a really quick, easy change. But I would like the board as a whole to look at the numbers and the percentages that I did, because it was a little bit arbitrary. I'm not an engineer. I don't know whether, it should be this amount of land for that slope and so on. But we could discuss that at some meeting in the future, and I presume reach agreement pretty quickly, and then, so 2-paragraph change to the bylaw.
Well, my, any proposed amendment would have to be, sent to, I guess, the clerk to make it on the warrant by August 1st. Is that correct, Patrick?
That's my understanding, yes.
Not only that, you would have to have a public hearing on that.
Absolutely. And would have to notice the public hearing. That requires some time. So,
2 weeks in advance.
yeah.
To clarify real quick, if you're talking about the stormwater bylaw, it's my understanding that's a general bylaw.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, actually,
yes.
you're right.
So
You're
there
right.
would
You
be a
don't
different
need public
process for
hearing.
that than a zoning bylaw amendment. So we probably want to double check with the town administrator on that one, but that's not, if it's not zoning, it's not 48.5.
So we could just put that on if the planning board reached consensus, that could go to, it could get on the warrant.
I'm not familiar with the town's internal process of how it would be placed in the warrant. I think you'd want to either have Patrick consult with the TA.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But it's different than zoning.
That's right.
Also, I don't know.
It is
Deb has her
its own
hand
separate
raised.
bylaw, yeah.
Yeah, it's not part of the zoning bylaw. It's just the town bylaw.
It's a town bylaw.
It's the town
So it
bylaw.
is a different process.
Yeah,
Right.
it still requires a hearing.
Hey, Marnie, somebody posted in the Q&A that they went to Richard Boroff's house. And
Yes.
no one was home. So I just letting you know that was an update. And then I don't know if that was what Barbara Ellison was going to point out, but that was under the Q&A section.
Oh, well, that's helpful to know. Well, let's just, before we address that, let's finish this discussion. I think that the first order of business is to get Bill's proposed changes to the other board members and get it on an agenda. So Patrick, if you could circulate that, we can consider trying to get it. Well, if we can come to a consensus and vote to actually do this, but get it on an agenda for discussion, it would have to be at our next meeting, which is going to be, of course, a very full meeting, but we could allocate 20 minutes to a discussion of it, and the sooner we have it, the better. And there may be, there may be other considerations at play. I know that Jonathan at one point, I think, mentioned a steep slope bylaw. So I don't know whether, it would be best to handle this, discreetly, or whether to think, a larger picture. So it is something that.
Well,
that
why don't we
need to-
just circulate the little 3-paragraph thing I did, and then the next meeting,
Exactly. Yeah. And then
we'll
talk about it
decide where we want to go with it. Yeah.
and talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So any other potential bylaw changes that anyone has in mind?
Marnie, I'd just like to make a comment that I have spent quite a bit of time looking at that issue, actually, since I joined the planning board. And what I have noticed is so many of the bylaws are intertwined with each other that every time you notice something that seems like small, easy, low-hanging fruit, you look at it more closely and it involves a little bit more thinking and kind of linking the pieces together. So I think there are a lot of opportunities to tune up the bylaws, and I think that racing ahead toward the fall meeting might be a disservice to that process. That's just an editorial comment.
And that's something that we can really consider because, you know, the law of unintended consequences. I mean, you think you're doing something fabulous and it actually turns out to create problems that are not anticipated. So yes, I think Jonathan's right in terms of, you know, a simple change could have ramifications that we just might not have time to really consider. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I would agree with Jonathan on that. I think it needs to be vetted pretty carefully. I'd especially like to have some of our hometown builders like Tom Ford or Tim Ford, you know, take a look at it and just give us a view from a development and what that means to them, just so we have both sides of the discussion.
Right, and I think everyone, it would be remiss of me not to remark that, you know, there were some issues and there still are issues, I think, with Bridge Street, and Bill's idea is one to kind of address the loophole, if you will, with respect to the bylaw and how, at least so far, it has worked or not, as the case may be, on Bridge Street. So we'll get your proposed language, Bill, and take a look at it and put it on the agenda and see where it goes from there. I certainly agree with you that the way the bylaw is written now, things fall through the cracks as they have. So, and the language it could be more clear, I think would be.
One other comment I'd like to add is an example of low-hanging fruit that would be safe to change would be if the board identified and agreed on any bylaws where the wording was contradictory or ambiguous, and you're just removing the ambiguity, not changing in any way the intent of the bylaw. That would be kind of a little bit of a safer small gesture. And I don't know how many things there are like that. I can think of maybe a couple things, but we could discuss them at another time.
There was the groundwater protection
Yeah, even
bylaw
that
issue about what a lot was.
Yeah,
And that was an example where I think this was really a clarification, just making it clear that there had been previous misinterpretation, and the lot under almost every definition I could ever find had to do with the size of a piece of land on which the dwelling unit is put.
Yeah, and
Not the size of a parcel of land.
we'd really need to have more legal counsel opine on that, because the prior town council did opine on that on two separate occasions during the hearings on the special permit for Canterbrook. So, and that actually contradicts some of the members' interpretation. So we would have to get another legal interpretation to make sure we're on solid ground.
I think likewise the affordable one Marty mentioned.
Pardon me?
The affordable count, you know.
Oh,
that
the
came up.
inclusionary housing bylaw.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for reminding me of that. I don't know if you recall, but the planning board did authorize me to ask the members of the Affordable Housing Trust whether they would craft some language that could be presented to the planning board for the planning board's consideration. So at our last meeting, and it was last week, Jamie Knudsen and another member of the Affordable Housing Trust are going to spearhead that effort. And I had assigned everyone towns. You know, we each took 3 towns and looked at their inclusionary housing bylaw and you know, so we identified a couple of towns that seemed to have some good bylaws, and they were going to look at that and look at ours and then come up with some ideas. But that certainly won't be anything for the fall town meeting. That will take some time, and so we'll go from there. But I did provide them with Robin Stein's memos that were the planning board voted to make public. And so they have her interpretations of the language of our existing bylaw, and then, you know, some thoughts on from other towns about how they crafted their bylaws and how they use different formulas and whatnot. So they're going to take a deep dive into that, but we haven't even scheduled a further meeting, and probably won't until the fall.
Just
Yeah, I think
a point to underscore some of Jonathan's remarks relative to the bylaw that I think people might find useful. A lot of communities actually do have a stand-in bylaw review committee, and they devote themselves to basically looking at the entire zoning bylaw, you know, element at a time or section at a time, prepare recommendations for clarification and bring those back to the full board. So, you know, that is an approach that some communities do utilize if there are folks that here that may be so interested. It's a lot of work, it's tedious work, but it's valuable work.
I think that's a great idea, Patrick. I think I'm on a subcommittee role too, so I think that come the end of the summer, we'll have to have some formal subcommittees, and I really like the idea of ones that will go through the bylaws and make recommendations. I mean, even if they're not recrafted for you know, any particular purpose, just to eliminate poor language. There's a lot of language in our bylaws that just create problems. And this is just an amusing story, but I'm looking at the inclusionary housing bylaw, and I think it might have been Groveland, but don't hold me to that. The payment in lieu of constructing affordable housing was at the discretion of the members of the Affordable Housing Trust. And I thought, oh boy. It almost made me laugh, because I couldn't think of anything that was more problematic than that. I mean, there was absolutely no certainty to that kind of an approach at all, and could only lead to problems. So, you know, to just you know, eliminate language that leads to multiple interpretations is something that's really it's very difficult, but well worth it in the long run. So
Patrick's point, also what that kind of effort would pick up is places where like definitions are missing. Like I think Hamilton is missing any definition for lot coverage, you know, in their general zoning bylaw.
And there are a lot of other contributors that might add to this as well. I can tell you that the building commissioner is highly skilled. He sees in a working practitioner's manner every single day some things that, you know, I think that he could bring to us that could be very useful as well in terms of clarifying.
And on that same note, you know, the planning board's rules and regulations have not been updated in quite some time. So I think that that's another task that could be undertaken, but all of this is something, I think, for the fall, when we conclude our deliberations with respect to the matter that's now before us. And I think, unless anyone has anything else, I think we're all in agreement, but that the MBTA community zoning, potential zoning is something that's on hold for now. And also the Council on Aging and the public safety building, although the form-based approach may have some effect on how we view any potential zoning to those, the Winthrop School and those areas. But again, that's not something that needs to, that we need to dwell on tonight. So unless anybody has any other comments with respect to that, I intend to turn back to the special permit and see where we are with respect to whether whether Jill will want a continuance and whether there's any problem with that.
Yeah, I unfortunately believe that we are going to begrudgingly request a continuance.
I'm wondering if Miss Eliason is, do you have any objection to that at this point?
I do understand that this creates some issues for everyone if there are so many members that have missed a meeting. So I think it is up to the board to decide what they want to do in that regard.
Well, I think under the circumstances, it is appropriate, but then this public hearing then will have to be continued to July 12th. And it was my hope at that point in time to have concluded the submission of materials for the board's consideration, and that we could take final statements in concluding these proceedings, at least for the submission of materials. But having said that, if we do in fact continue this hearing, we have the, as you said, is that Oxbow? The Oxbow report. So Ms. Eliason, you will have that and you'll be able to comment on it one way or another. I want to be clear. I think that Mr. Tar, he was a member of the Conservation Commission, I believe. I don't think he was affiliated in any way with Save Chappaqua Trails and Watershed. And I don't know the gentleman, but I think, he had, I don't think he had any criminal intent when he was walking on the property, but be that as it may, his statement speaks for itself. And if you have evidence that in this report that he was incorrect in his assumption, that's fine. Ms. Eliason, you have the report. If there are any problems with it, or we can address it at that time. I think that
Madam Chair, before we go on, I do not have the entire report. We only have the sheets that were in the PowerPoint, and it says that there's evidence and documentation that he based his decision on, or his report on. So I would ask that that be sent to both the planning board and Save Tobacco. I don't see why it couldn't be sent tomorrow.
We need the full report for whatever George Tar submitted, because we didn't get it either. We just got 2 pages and there's
that's all that he's
marking, and it wasn't included. And we'd also like any other, if you have information about his supposed investigation, that should be delivered. I mean, and it should be delivered more than a week in advance of the hearing. I mean, I would love, Ms. Crouch, if we can, to just set a final delivery time, because we have nothing more to submit. I mean, the letter from Oxbow is not testimony for anything other than the fact that we had done work. And when we got George Tar's letter, we're like, yeah, we know.
Let me clarify, Patrick, how did you receive Mr. Tar's statement? I mean, he captioned it an affidavit. He signed it under penalties of perjury. It was not notarized. I mean, this is a 79-year-old gentleman who was on the Conservation Commission. So whatever he did, it is what it is. But I don't know how that statement was transmitted to the planning board
That
So
paperwork came to me from John Cole as an email, and that I in turn sent it to usual recipients.
So I have, that's, I did not know that is how it came to the planning board. I don't know Mr. Tar's affiliation other than what was in that statement. That's all I know. There were 2 maps attached to the statement, but put it this way. This is something that can be readily resolved with the exchange of information, and then we can proceed and get what needs to be said on the record at our next meeting. So my thinking is the soonest you can exchange that information, and it seems to me that go ahead and just get it on the table and get the thing resolved, the better. But
We have
in
no
no
issue with that.
I
That's fine.
don't either, Madam Chair, and I don't have any further information to provide with regard to George Tar's affidavit, other than what was sent to Patrick.
Right. So we'll get that issue resolved. And then I know that Ms. Mann, you did update the blast, the rock handling report just this evening. It was
I have to say that
revised.
we really shouldn't, we're talking about too much stuff during a public hearing. We really can't.
No,
We-
this is the agenda. This
procedure.
is the agenda for July 12th. So
Okay.
you updated that plan just this evening. So it might be helpful that, I certainly didn't have time to see how the revisions affected the original March 7th submission. So at that, we can get that resolved if there are any issues there on July 12th as well. So
I mean, we have no additional information to offer. I mean, we have completed our submittals.
We may have some more submittals after we review what was provided to us today and as late as 6:30 this evening.
I just assumed if you were going to have those submittals, you would have had it based on the information because that was the reaction to it, but that's fine. I mean, it's what it is, it is.
please, any additional information, I want it submitted to the planning board no later than July 5th at 4 p.m.
This is going to be
And-
the issue though, Ms. Crouch, is when it gets in July 5th, I can't react that quickly to things. It's like if we could have an initial delivery date, for example, if it would be acceptable, that way we're sure we're going to get it all and you can get it timely. So if we could do it, like, for example, if it's July, I don't have a calendar. Okay, here's a calendar. If we get, I mean, it would appear to me that we could do it potentially 2 weeks before, like on the 28th. And that way you will have, if I have to respond, so if an initial submittal comes in on the 28th, then any response would be due on the 5th, and then you have time. Because the thing, the rock management plan was just the attachment of 2 additional plans. There were really no changes in adding 2 chemicals to be tested. That's why it was just, he updated it after getting Jamie Emery's report. So that's why if we could do that for our submittal deadlines, then we're sure to have a streamlined hearing at the next hearing.
Madam Chair, I guess the only thing is that we could do this to infinity. Joe will provide something, then I'll want to provide something, and blah, 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 blah. I think at some point it has to end. So having a
Right.
4 p.m.
So
deadline on
that's-
July 5th is fine.
Again,
Okay,
it's not, because this is
Please.
exactly what happened before.
Excuse me, enough. Ms. Eliason, can you get any response to the new information in by June 28th? Is that too early for you?
It is. That's only 3 business days.
Okay, we're going to hold hard and fast to July 5th. I will review all the material. I'm sure that you all can as well. So we're going to continue this meeting until July 12th, and hopefully at that point, we will have all the information that anyone intends to provide.
So then if
And-
that's going to be the case, then I have to ask you that you give me until it's July 5th. I'm going to need at least until July, because it's a holiday. I guess we could do it by July 8th to give you any response to what we get on the 5th, but I need time.
Okay,
And I'm
that's
the
fine.
applicant, so I
That-
really need time.
Miss Mann, that's fine. And Miss Eliason, you can respond to anything that Miss Mann provides by July 8th. Okay?
There you go.
Everybody gets a
So we're
shot
July
here.
8th and she's July 11th?
no.
Oh,
You're all going to exchange your information by July 5th. And if you have problems with the information you receive, file your response by July 8th.
okay.
That's perfect.
And may I
Marty?
ask one clarification, Madam Chair? With regard to PowerPoints, the applicant has been providing those the night of the hearing. Is that permissible to present a PowerPoint the night of the hearing? I just
Well,
want to
I
know what the
assume she's
rules are.
going to do the PowerPoint that she has already, provided to you and the planning board members. No new plan, no new PowerPoint. We have the PowerPoint that she was going to do tonight.
The
Okay,
PowerPoint only wraps up the submittal. It's very unusual of this additional stuff, but yeah.
not always, but that's fine. I just want to
We got
understand. what the
ransom on the
rules
night
are.
of it. I mean, I don't mind the PowerPoint stuff.
I just want to
Up to-
understand what the rules are.
I want to call a halt to this back and forth, and I want to remind everyone that I expect civility from here on out. I don't want any hyperbole. We're all adults here. There's enough incivility in our public sphere on a national level. I don't want it spilling over into this planning board. So I think we can proceed. I hope we can proceed in a civil fashion and get the information exchanged, and we will have a further hearing then on July 12th. And I anticipate then that July 12th hearing will be the final submission of informative material that's germane to the issuance of a special permit. And on July 12th, then we can go forward and discuss the schedule for July 26th, and that would be for final statements. And I will let the attorneys contemplate this, but my thinking is my preference would be to receive written statements that are not excessively long. I would say probably no more than 20 to 25 pages, if that, and that any statements or arguments would be for information that's really not part of the written statement. And
Marty, can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'm confused.
Yes.
What would be the cutoff date for the support / opposition letters that continue to come in? When would we like to set that date?
well, I think that probably should be. I hate to give a date at this point. I'd like to think about that, because I think we would have to, post something on the planning board website. I think that many of the people who may be submitting letters are not watching this public hearing at the present time. And I don't know that we can actually tell people that they can't send letters to the planning board. At some point, we can make a determination that we will not consider any more letters. But I'm going to think about that, and
Okay.
I'll get back to you on that. I'm a little leery about that. And then another matter I want to bring to everyone's attention is that periodically Patrick has sent you this bylaw data summary, which, with the benefit of hindsight, I think it would have been great if we had been recording everything that we received, like docket entries in a court proceeding. And I'm sure the attorneys here know what that is like, but that would have made our record keeping somewhat easier. But anyhow, the applicant, Save Tobacco Trails and Watershed, and the public has access to that document. And what I would ask people to do is take a look at it. If there are any errors or omissions in that document that you want to bring to our attention, you're welcome to provide a red line copy to Patrick and we can review it. So if we have omitted something, you should bring it to our attention. And please don't take the existing document and edit it or whatever. Do a red line copy. There has to be one master version of this that the planning board has. You can make suggestions for additions to that document. And if it's something that might be a little difficult to find because this process has been going on for about 11 months, you're certainly welcome to attach or resubmit whatever might be missing. And that I will add to that even though you think something should have been in one category, it might be listed in that document, but not exactly where you think it should be. If that's the case, you can let us know, but you don't need to, there's a lot of flexibility and interchangeability in different categories. So I would urge you not to worry unduly if something appears on the document, but not exactly where you thought it should be. So that's our safety net to make sure that there are no materials that have been submitted that we will overlook in our deliberations. And I can also say that if it's a document that was submitted in September of 2021 with respect to some version of a plan that's been superseded, that may not be the most critical piece of information that we need. I mean, we have to really focus on what's before us now. So if there are things that may be omitted that are not really as relevant as they used to be, take that into consideration when you review.
So Ms. Crowe, just to make sure, what I had done was I did keep a compiled list of everything we've ever submitted, but when I was doing it for your update, excuse me, I'm choking for some reason. I eliminated like the prior site plans and I just included the ones you got recently so that you didn't have them. It would be voluminous. So that's what you mean, right? To just modify it. If I submitted something that's revised, just submit the revision that's final.
Whatever way you want to proceed it's your choice. I'm just giving you the option of dealing with that particular document. And then again, I will add to this with respect to your final statements. If you do have, I would like those to be tied to the extent possible to what is in the record.
Yep.
Are there any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, one question, clarification on the closing statement. So the written statements we will submit presumably a week ahead of time, where there'll be a deadline set. And then we'll do our arguments on the 26th. The PowerPoints that go with the arguments, is it okay to submit those the day of the argument, or do we have to submit those early? I just want to be clear on the rules.
Well, I didn't anticipate that you would be submitting PowerPoints with respect to your final statements. If you would prefer doing that instead of PowerPoint instead of a written statement, or both, that would be your choice. But I think it would be helpful to get those to the planning board a week before the 26th.
Okay, I just want to understand what the rules are. I'm fine either way.
Okay, so let me just look at my calendar and I'll give you that date.
So our final, the submittal that we give to you is basically a form of a summary, but our presentation is not necessarily tied to that. Our presentation is basically going to be a lot more fluid, I would think. So, and that's what you meant. You don't want repetition.
Right.
Understood.
So, and I also think that your presentations, I would like them to be as short as possible and to the point. I mean, we've heard a lot of argument and we're familiar with the arguments. So there are certain things that don't need to be repeated endlessly. I mean, they can be in the written materials as opposed to the oral presentations. So with that said, our agenda for our next meeting will essentially be the agenda that we were to proceed with for this meeting. So does anyone have any further comments or anything that is bringing to the attention now?
Yeah, Marnie, I just want to confirm the schedule. So the next meetings are July 12th. The
And 26th.
The 26th, are we anticipating then a meeting on August 9th as well?
Well, now that's a good point, because if you go to the planning board webpage, we have one meeting scheduled, and that is August 16th.
Okay, that's good.
We did adopt that. We did adopt that schedule with one meeting in August. However, it is the board's prerogative to have 2 meetings or 3 meetings or whatever it chooses.
Let's leave it for the 16th, and if we need to modify it, because I'm on vacation the 9th.
There's always a hidden agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally
But
hidden.
you know what? There's magic words with me, and that's vacation planning. And
Hey,
I think
I'm
everyone needs a vacation. It
Hey,
makes everyone happier.
I'm calling from Sandy Point, Booth Bay in my RV camper. So,
Oh, I have you built by thousands of miles, Rick, okay? So, all right, so we can determine at the next meeting whether we want to ruin everyone's vacation plans in August by trying to schedule more meetings. But at this juncture, if there's nothing further, I think that I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, to continue.
Marzi.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To
First, we have the motion to continue the public hearing.
Yep.
Please. So
So
I'll entertain a motion. Well, we'll make sure it's clear. A motion to continue the public hearing on the special permit and stormwater management permit to July 12th at 7 p.m. Via Zoom. So if I have such a motion.
so moved.
Seconded.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. So Rick Mitchell,
Aye.
Jonathan Poor,
Aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Aye.
Beth Herr.
Can I vote on this? I'm not sure.
Oh, you don't get to vote on this.
Okay,
Sorry. You're
no
smart.
problem.
Bill Wheaton
Aye.
and Marty Crouch, aye. Oh, so Pat Norton, you get to vote on this.
Yep,
You're
Pat
up.
Norton, aye.
Aye. Okay, and now I can entertain the motion to adjourn. So do I have the?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
I second.
Okay. So roll call vote. Rick Mitchell,
Aye.
Jonathan Poor,
Aye.
Neil Dahlquist,
Aye.
Beth Herr,
Aye.
Bill Wheaton,
Aye.
Pat Norton.
Aye.
Oh, you don't get to vote on that. Sorry. Too confusing. And Marty Crouch, aye, but I think it's unanimous. So apologies for the problem with the meeting. I certainly hope that Richard Boroff has not had an emergency in his family or anything like that. And I hope we hear from him and find out that he's okay. So with
Excuse
that
me,
said,
Marnie, there's a question in the Q&A.
oh, sure. We've adjourned, but what is the question?
It's
There's
about
a
meetings
question
to be in
about-
person or webinar.
What's that?
Whether meetings are after July 1st or in person or webinar.
We'll keep with the webinar concept for now.
Marnie, we'll have to discuss it more at the July 12th meeting, but you're good for July 12th.
We're good for, have you heard anything? I don't know if this is off the,
Right,
whether
let's
you
not-
heard
we
anything
can-
from
We
the
can talk
Commonwealth.
offline, but you're good for the 12th.
Yeah, you don't know anything about after that.
No,
though.
and since you've already taken the vote to adjourn, I think we can confirm you're good
Yeah.
to be webinar by the 12th, but.
Okay.
Yeah, as staff, I can make a comment that is proper. The governor is to make a determination on July 23rd as to whether or not to continue Zoom remote meetings until the end of the year, as I understand it. So we're all waiting on that.
Okay, everybody.
All right, have a good
Good night.
Very
Right.
much.